after all, until the face ceases to be form, because you finished with each of the roles that was taking form. Because you begin to see, since the person's face is changing before your very eyes, that your desires, your model, your thought form is taking that matter and putting it into form. You know how when your moods change, the entire world changes. You create it differently. And finally you see behind all that, and you just see the eyes of the other person. It's just the eyes, and here we are, just eyes. Just here. And we see that you and I are involved in infinite variety of roles all the time. And those are the vehicles through which we speak. But we speak only to ourselves. We speak only to ourselves. Now, at that moment, then the act of lovemaking, what does it mean and how does it work then? Then it becomes a physiological dance of two parts of form, experienced by a single consciousness. And then it becomes like mudra. Mudras are statements made with form, like this is a mudra of prayer. That's a mudra. That's a mudra. That's a mudra. That's a mudra. Your body is always making a statement. It's always making a statement. Each of you at this moment, your body is making a statement. Most of these statements, most of us are unconscious of most of the time. We just think we're keeping our body around, keeping it comfortable. But in fact, it's making statements. And when you start to bring all of your being into consciousness at every level, your body statement becomes part of the whole process. And it's completely consciously done the way you move. And you watch a conscious being move and you notice there's no effort that isn't, it's as if every movement is an act of the highest art and the highest beauty. Because each statement is absolutely perfectly conscious. And each one is the optimum place to be at that moment. So you get a feeling when you watch a conscious being move that you are watching something like a tree sway. You're watching a harmonious act, an act that's harmonious. And then you begin to see that that body movement, just like a work of art or a piece of music or anything else, in its purest sense, in the fourth chakra sense or above, is merely a statement of truth. It's a statement of God. In other words, you're doing it in its sacred rather than its profane form. You're doing it as a statement of truth. And that means that's what's called a consecrated act. It's a consecrated act. And so then lovemaking becomes a consecrated act. Because there is one consciousness which is higher than each of you separately that is performing this act with the two bodies, which is an act, a statement of truth. Statement of truth. And then it's just not making love, but it's eating, and it's toileting, and it's walking, and it's driving, and it's meeting everybody you ever meet. When you meet somebody on the street, Is that somebody you're meeting on the street somebody different than you're making love to? And if so, why? What model is it in your head? Does it scare you to think that you'd walk down the street and you would look at everybody as your lover? Is that too much? Can you handle that one? So it's scary to you because you think of it in second chakra terms. Because you think, well, if it's my lover, that must mean I want to go to bed with him. That's in your model of lust of subject-object. But the lover in the sense of, here we are, wow, here we are, here we are, here we are again, wow, dig that. Here we are. Because if what I said is true, about that when you live in the fourth chakra, you are as high as you're going to be when you're at the moment of orgasm. Now think of walking down and getting on the 3rd Avenue bus in the moment of orgasm. And think of meeting the grocery store man in the moment of orgasm. And think of meeting the policeman in the moment of orgasm. And think of eating your breakfast in the middle of orgasm. And think of going to the toilet in the middle of orgasm. It's hard, isn't it? And the minute of that merging, unitive, all coming together, oneness of... right? And all I'm doing is walking down the street. That's the meaning of the term yoga. That's the ananda of Sat Chit Ananda. It's the absolute bliss, it's called. Taking your own life just the way it is at this moment. How do you transform that? How do you transform it? How do you bring consciousness into it, into every nook and cranny of it? Now, in our Western doing way, we first usually think we ought to change our life. If you got a job, give it up. If you're at school, drop out. If you're not married, marry. If you're whatever it is, go to an ashram. Do something. Stop eating, start eating, eat this, eat that. Do this, do that. But as you've done all that after a while, so you rush and do it sometimes, and then you see that you bring with you all the stuff that you're trying to get rid of into each new external environment. Although each external environment may call forth different parts of where you are at. So that if you go up into the mountains and live alone, it will not arouse in you certain kinds of worldly desires that would be aroused were you sitting in the middle of New York City. But then you find when you come back to New York City, you have to face a lot of those anyway. All you did was push them out of sight. You didn't finish with them. So finally you get mature enough and wise enough to start with right where you are now. If you're a man with a job and a professional responsibility and a commitment, here I am. If you're a woman with children, here I am. If you're somebody who is working in service, here I am. If you're somebody who is drifting, here I am. If you're somebody that's an artist, here I am. If you're somebody that's... Start with where you are. And you start to bring to bear consciousness on every part of that life just the way it is now. With the understanding that as you bring consciousness to bear on every part of your life, that part of your life will change to come more into harmony with the Tao, more into harmony with the universe, with form, with all manifestation of form, without your doing anything. It's like I didn't have to stop seeing my old friends. It all just fell away. And it fell away because I wasn't the person I used to be. And there wasn't any reason for us to be together. And there was a feeling, there wasn't any ripping, there was just a dropping away. And the mature being realizes that growth is very much like the snake shedding its skin. The skin falls away, you don't rip it off. You don't have to say, goodbye parents, I'm leaving, rip, I gotta rip. That's only because you don't have enough faith. That you gotta make some external waves in order to prove to yourself you're doing something. But actually the process goes on just very gently within the field you're in right at the moment. Like you can work with the thought that any time you can say about anything in the universe, quote, that brings me down, the next line you should say is, well, that's my problem. Meaning that's a place in my head that I'm stuck in. That's why it brings me down. In the yoga, one of the methods is called contentment. That's not a goal, that's a method. Most people say, sure, well, when I'm finished, I'll be content. No, that isn't the game. The game is contentment, meaning it is just the way it is, just the way it is. This is the way it is, okay? Now, I can be content at this moment, and at the same moment, the next moment, I will move towards something else. Like I can be sitting here, and I'm here, and this is content. But in this body situation is the seeds of the fact that I'm going to do this. Because there is some tension in my body, because it's not in harmony, because certain muscles are being strained and so on. So I can sit here, and at the same moment there is that tension, and the next moment that tension is going to motivate me to do this. Still, when I am here, I am content. 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 Okay? Can you hear what I'm saying about that? So that even though you're going to change something the next minute, that doesn't mean you change it out of discontent. It changes because it changes. It changes because it changes. Now, it is under that basis that you do everything you do in yoga. You do it because you do it. But at each moment you are exactly where we are, which is content. And as you begin to calm down and hear and see more and understand more, you begin to feel the way in which your body and the way in which your breath affect your state of consciousness. And you begin to notice that very often your body brings you down. It's like if I wish to do a formal meditation and put my body in a certain position, like into a lotus position, and sit down and get myself perfectly balanced so that the weight is forward on my body, so it's sort of on the thighs and on the front of the rib cage, and I just sit down like this, I can at that point, my body can fit into the harmony of the universe in such a way through balance and so on that I don't have to think about my body anymore. My body won't keep demanding consciousness, saying, knee hurts, back's getting sore, leg going to sleep, sending all these messages which are saying, do something about me. And as you start to do that first exercise we did this morning, which is just bringing your mind to one-pointedness, and you see why your mind can't get to one-pointedness, you begin to feel that your body is sort of catching you somehow or other. And that the model of coming into some other harmony means getting something done with your body. And you begin to work on your body, on your diet, on your body movements, on your breath. Just because. You start to notice that when you eat certain foods, you feel certain ways. It's an old art. If you want to be in the second chakra, you eat aphrodisiacal foods. There are certain kinds of foods that are called rajasic foods in this Hindu system, meaning fiery foods like spices and meat and so on that are into more like first, second, and third chakra stuff. You eat first, second, and third chakra foods, you'll be first, second, and third chakra person. Because in some way you are what you eat until you get to the level of consciousness where you can transmute. The minute you can transmute energy, you can take anything into your system and move it immediately up into the place it's got to be, to a higher center. But until you can do that, where it comes, what you take in has a ascending thing in it. It'll support some particular model or another. We're going to do an exercise during the noon meal of conscious eating. And then we'll be discussing food more in the afternoon. But now I'd like us to do something with pranayama or breath. You know, everybody moved out of some place or other into something or other, with some thought or other. Right? All you have to do is note that. I don't, you know, it's noted. Pranayama, which is the fourth of the 8 limbs of the yoga. We've been working with number 2 and number 1 primarily thus far. The fourth limb of the yoga is called pranayama, which means control of prana or life force. And it's concerned with learning how to move prana or energy up your spine, get it up into the higher centers. When you really are doing pranayama, when I am into pranayama, in the formal sense, pranayama will take me into every state that I ever got into with LSD. Pranayama is the most powerful method that I use in terms of straight power. Although there were power mantras I use which are just about as powerful, but this is extraordinarily powerful stuff. What I'm going to share with you are the 3 basic breathing techniques to get the process going. You use them for 5-6 months until you get certain clues inside you. The effects of these breathing things are that your breath will become very, very calm all day long. Very gentle and calm. And if you're going to be able to develop a center so you can see how it is, you have to stay right here, calm. And you begin to see how your environment, your breath is your environment. That's one kind of an environment. And if you study a yogi, his breath is always so thin. My teacher can be running up a hill, and you listen to his breath, and I get up to the top of the hill, and his breath is absolutely... Now, besides calming the breath, these exercises in pranayama will simultaneously give you a feeling of lightness all day long. The third thing they will do, and this is very interesting because I thought of these as very trivial things until I started to see how they work. That pranayama is so powerful it starts to affect your diet very strongly. It starts to affect what you can eat when you're really doing pranayama. You got to really get into it, but that's the way it works. It also affects your blood, and it will start to sensitize you to certain nerves in your body. Here's how it works. Now, you may have learned breathing exercises in different ways. That's groovy. Do your own. These are not his versus mine. These are merely a set. There are many paths, and this is one traditional path of breathing. Breath is one of the ways to tune in on prana, that's all. Breath and prana are not necessarily the same. Prana is all energy. Breath is merely one of the corners of it. These 3 exercises, which are called Shitli, Bhastrika, and Narisodan, are to be done on an empty stomach, and they are to be done with, meaning no food for 3 hours and no liquid for an hour. When you are doing a total sadhana, that means you are doing nothing else but your sadhana, but your spiritual work, and everything in your life is designed around that, then you are able to organize your life so that you could do the breathing 4 times a day at 6, 12, 6, and 12. If you're living in a cave, for example. most people in the West, at the degree of intensity at which they do their sadhana, can perhaps do it twice a day, and the minimum, of course, is once a day. And perhaps the best time to do it is early in the morning. And if it's to be 2 times a day, it's early in the morning and the evening before you take your evening food, if you're going to take evening food. The head, neck, and chest are kept in a straight line. Now, these 3 breathing exercises are taught in 2 ways. One, they're taught in a very gentle way, and one, they're taught in a much more powerful way, which I started to teach this more powerful way, and then somebody came up to me and said, "You're not supposed to teach that to people. That's dangerous." So I immediately wrote to my teacher, and I said, "I'm not supposed to teach that. That's dangerous." And he wrote back and he says, "It's all right." So I'll teach it to you just the way I know it, because I have a feeling that the danger lies in the way in which it's invested, and I don't feel any danger in any of these. And I'll explain the one I do, which is the one beyond these, and what the dangers are connected with it. Since anything I know, you're welcome to know. Now, the secret or the power method of these is the closing of the mulbund. The mulbund is an opening, or it's a set of nerves you activate which tightens a set of muscles. And these muscles, you can experience them. They are 2 fingers width behind the genitals and 2 fingers width in front of the anus. There's a place, which is right down in here, where a series of nerves, it's like a nerve center, and when you pull back and in and up on that, it's like pulling back in the genitals, and when you go to the toilet, when you defecate, you tighten your sphincter afterwards, and it's that same feeling of tightening the sphincter and pulling back in on the genitals. Now, most people have learned through psychoanalysis in one form or another to let all that open. See, otherwise it's known in the culture as being tight-assed or some image like that. And now you're going to learn to close it and keep it closed. Right? And you will keep it closed during the entire 3 breathing exercises. Later on, you learn how to keep it closed all the time. So just it automatically stays closed. You just open it when you need to open it. You don't keep it open and close it when you need to close it. Now, at first, when you try to close it, you'll feel a vrrr and a tight, and you can't do it, and you forget, and that's all part of the course. It's all cool. Don't get uptight. It's sometimes helpful to take a little ball of cloth, like a kind of a bigger golf ball, made of cloth. Don't use a rock or anything like that. A piece of cloth, and stick it under there so that it presses up on those, and it helps those stay closed. Helps remind you, too, to keep them closed. And you can carry your little yoga kit, which includes your earplugs and your little ball of cloth and stuff like that, and your tube for washing out your nose. And then if you get more advanced, you have your long piece of cloth that you swallow when you bring out your rectum and you clean your intestines. Depends on how deep you want to get into the whole program. This is the first round of methodology, so we won't do any rectal cleaning today. So you try to keep the mulbund closed, and I'll try to remind you about it. And it doesn't matter where you're starting from. It doesn't matter anything about your age. It doesn't matter anything about your previous anything. It's just whether or not you're ready to do these kinds of things. I started yoga when I was 35, I guess, and I couldn't have sat in this position for more than 10 seconds without excruciating pain. Right? And the, oh, God, you know that place? And now I just put my body there and leave it there. And that all happened within like 3 months. Of 3 months of just doing it. Just cut out all the can I do it? Will I do it? Just do it, see. It's just simple as that. Just do it. But get comfortable. Don't just get so that your head, neck, and chest are in a straight line. You can sit in a chair. Doesn't matter. Whichever way you can do your thing most comfortably, so you can get your body cool. The mulbun close. Now, this particular kind of breath control is all preparatory, and therefore it's all, in this case, it's all upper breathing. It is not lower breathing. You're not breathing down here. It's up in the chest, diaphragm up here. So there is another bund or opening called the Udian bund, which is right here. Now, in different kinds of things, you do different kinds of breathing. And it's not good and evil, it's just different kinds of breathing for different purposes. This particular type of breathing is upper breathing. You close the Udian bund as well. That's where you suck in on your gut just a little bit. Now you can notice that when you let out your air completely, you can suck way in the gut, and when you strengthen those muscles, your stomach starts to go in rather than out or straight. It goes way in under your chest cavity.